The boat isn't sinking because you spend too much. The boat is sinking because you keep adding water faster than you can bail it out, and every budget app you've ever downloaded is just a faster bucket. You've done everything right, or at least everything you were told to do. You tracked your spending. You tried the 50-30-20 rule. You said no to things quietly, privately, and felt that particular sting of denying yourself something you already wanted. And then, 3 weeks later, you were exactly where you started. Maybe a little more tired, maybe a little more convinced that you just don't have whatever it takes to be the kind of person who actually saves money. That version of yourself, the one with a full emergency fund, the one who checks their bank account without holding their breath, you can see them. You just can't reach them. Here's what almost no one in personal finance is willing to say out loud: that feeling isn't about discipline. It never was. Americans collectively save less than 4% of their income. That number exists alongside more budgeting tools, savings apps, and financial content than any generation in history. More knowledge, more structure, less saved. That contradiction doesn't point to a disciplined failure, it points to an architectural one. Every single day you spend without understanding what's actually happening, your financial situation doesn't hold steady. It drifts, quietly, in a direction that's very hard to see until the distance between where you are and where you want to be becomes impossible to ignore. The problem was never behavioral. You've been trying to fix the roof while the foundation was already cracking. Here's what's actually happening. Imagine your financial life as a boat. Somewhere in the hull, beneath the waterline out of sight, there's a hole. Not massive, not immediately catastrophic, but constant, relentless. Every budgeting strategy you've ever tried is a more sophisticated method of bailing water. The apps, the spreadsheets, the savings challenges, the no-spend months, all buckets, increasingly efficient buckets, but buckets. Nobody told you to seal the hole. The hole is desire, not spending desire, and that distinction is worth everything you've ever lost trying to outrun your own impulses. When you want something, your brain does something that nobody in personal finance bothers to explain accurately. A neuroscientist named Kent Berridge spent decades separating the dopamine system into two distinct mechanisms: wanting and liking. They are not the same thing, not remotely. Dopamine, the chemical everyone assumes is the pleasure chemical, doesn't fire at the moment of purchase. It fires at the moment of wanting, the craving itself, the anticipation. A completely separate neurological system handles the actual enjoyment once you have the object. This is why you can spend weeks wanting something, finally buy it, and feel almost nothing within hours of it arriving. The neurological reward already happened. It happened in the wanting. What this means for your financial life is more uncomfortable than it sounds. The addictive loop isn't driven by buying, it's driven by desiring. Which means the moment you allow a desire to take root, the moment you see something and let the thought settle, I should get that, your brain has already started spending. Not money, not yet, but mental energy, identity, future behavior. Behavioral economists call this accumulation desire debt, and it may be the most expensive cost in your financial life that never appears on any statement. Every unexamined desire you carry is a silent claim on your future income. It has already decided you'll spend. All that's left is the timing. This is exactly why willpower fails every single time. Willpower is a behavioral level tool. It arrives at the moment of purchase and asks, can I afford this right now? But desire operates at the identity level. By the time you're standing at checkout, physical or digital, your identity has already quietly incorporated the thing you're about to buy. You're not resisting a purchase. You're resisting a version of yourself that already owns it. That is not a fair fight. And budgeting doesn't make it fairer. Budgeting is a conversation with your behavior, structured around the question of whether a transaction is permissible. But desire doesn't live in the transaction. It lives upstream, in the place where identity forms, where wants become needs, where a thought becomes a plan you didn't consciously authorize. You've been having the wrong conversation with the wrong part of yourself at the wrong moment. What makes this harder to see is that it wasn't designed to be visible. The modern retail environment was engineered with a precise understanding of exactly this neuroscience. The variable reward cycles of social media feeds, the one-click checkout, the personalization of digital advertising, these systems don't sell you products. They manufacture desires, at scale, with targeting precision that would be unsettling if it weren't so normalized. Every time you open a platform, you're not browsing, you're receiving a desire injection, calculated, optimized, repeated until the want feels like it originated in you. which means your overspending problem is not primarily a personal failure. It is a structural vulnerability being systematically exploited. The hole in your hull didn't open by accident. Someone engineered it open carefully over years, using the exact same neurological research you're hearing right now. Every bucket handed to you was pointed in the wrong direction. Here's what's genuinely uncomfortable about this. If saving money doesn't require more discipline, then more discipline will not save you. If the problem is architectural and you've been treating it as personal, then more personal effort won't close the gap. You can white-knuckle your way through a no-spend month, feel legitimate pride in the restraint, and be right back where you started by month 2, not because you failed, because you solved the wrong problem. The exhaustion you feel around money is not weakness. It is what happens when you apply maximum effort at minimum leverage. The tool that addresses the actual source is not a budget. It's an audit, but not of your spending, of your desires. The Stoics called a version of this premeditatio, confronting something before it arrives, not to practice gratitude, not to perform discipline, to strip illusion, to see clearly what something actually is before you've been seduced by what it seems to promise. The practice is almost brutally simple. When a desire surfaces, before you've evaluated whether you can afford it, before you've opened a tab, you ask one question. What do I believe this will give me that I don't already have? Not do I need it, that question has 100 clever answers. Not can I afford it, that question always comes too late. What do I believe this will give me that I don't already have? And then you answer honestly. Most answers examined clearly resolve to one of 3 things: status, comfort, or the quiet feeling that your current life is slightly incomplete, none of which the product can actually provide. Status is social and therefore infinite. There is always a higher version of whatever you're considering. Comfort is neurological and temporary. It fades before the credit card bill arrives. And the sense of incompleteness is a condition that more things cannot treat because it was never caused by fewer things. This is not philosophy for its own sake. This is cognitive architecture. When you run a desire through this question honestly without rushing toward the answer you want, the desire often collapses, not suppressed, not resisted, just gone, because it was never about the product. It was about a belief, and beliefs, unlike impulses, can be examined. When your desires compress, something quiet happens to your financial life. Saving money stops being an act of discipline. It becomes an act of irrelevance. You don't need willpower to avoid buying what you no longer want. The bucket can sit unused, not because you're stronger, because the water stopped coming in. The people who accumulate quietly, who live below their means without apparent effort or sacrifice, are not exercising extraordinary self-control. They've completed a different conversation than the one everyone else is having. Not how do I stop spending so much, but how many of my desires are actually mine. The disciplined but broke person and the effortlessly wealthy person are not separated by habit, income, or intelligence. They are separated by the depth of the question they ask and the moment they ask it. You have probably never in your entire financial life been asked to examine a desire before it became a purchase. Every tool ever given to you arrives downstream, after the desire is already formed, after the identity is already negotiated, after the water is already rising. Start earlier, one question asked honestly, before a want calcifies into identity. What do I believe this will give me that I don't already have? Not every time, not with rigidity that turns a practice into another burden, just often enough to notice how many of your desires were manufactured and how few were ever really yours. The hole in the hull can be sealed, but not with a budget. If this shifted something for you, share it with someone who's been trying harder instead of thinking differently. And if you want to go deeper on the actual architecture underneath financial discipline, not the habits, but the foundation that makes the habits unnecessary, that's exactly what this channel is for.